Many have done the test and many failed, but it was finally time for our boy to teach them how it's supposed to be done. With just the lightest push, he's already sunlight level, but that was only the beginning. He immediately pulled out his martial avatar, layered it with all his techniques, and gathered every last immortal cell into a single force. As he let out a furious roar, the massive wheel began to stir. Energy surged outward, and for the first time, he sensed the thingy loosening ever so slightly. He roared again. This time, golden light burst from his forehead, and his clothes exploded as well, but pants, like always, were still intact. Meanwhile, the glow on the wheel deepened, and our boy began laughing and remarked that with his clothes blown apart, what else was the wheel waiting for? With a single stomp, a chunk of it cracked beneath his foot. That was the tipping point. Energy erupted in every direction and quickly became uncontrollable. The surface of the wheel began to fracture. What followed was golden light, like a burning pillar that tore through the sky. The scene then cut all the way to Count Sith's manor, where Milton trembled as he stared at the latest space Twitter feed, and everyone seemed to be talking about him. He cursed under his breath and smashed his phone, but before he could recover, a strange ripple swept past him. He glanced up and through the window, and he caught sight of a golden beam piercing the heavens. His voice dropped as he muttered in disbelief, uncertain of what he was even looking at. Elsewhere, Vera clutched a plush toy while chatting on her phone. She froze when the same light painted her window. Her eyes widened, and she was equally shocked, but neither of them was alone. That ripple spread far beyond what anyone expected, racing across countless planets. Whether it was a thriving and advanced high-civilization planet, or an abandoned and primitive one, regardless of where they were at that very moment, everyone instinctively looked up. Across the entire Yamu star sector, people's hearts raced and throats tightened. It was impossible to describe, but they all felt that strange joy blooming from within. Some who were weeping moments ago were now smiling through tears. Others dropped to their knees and began praying. Every being could feel it in their bones, almost like the universe itself was cheering, celebrating alongside them. Perhaps something incredible had emerged, and the entire Yamu had changed forever. The chief executor gasped in surprise, and recognized this to be an immortal level, and she was stunned that such a bloodline could emerge from Yamu. The senator, meanwhile, couldn't contain his excitement. He didn't just jump off the ship. He smashed through the glass just to make it look more dramatic. Back to the scene where it all happened. All eyes were locked on the wheel. Cracks spread like spiderwebs across its surface. Meanwhile, Lancer, supported by his guards, stared intently. The Dean, meanwhile, overwhelmed, yells that this was true might, peerless might. He asserted this wasn't just a display of power, but the birth of a legend, and he could feel the tides of the stars were shifting, and all of its energy now circled around Lu Sheng. Suddenly, he recalled an ancient prophecy. Lancer had heard whispers of it too. The Dean reveals the tale in full, saying that when the immortal bloodline descends, the wheel will ignite with a light that shakes the universe, a phenomenon so rare and powerful that even the cosmos would stop and celebrate. And now, as they stood bearing witness, the prophecy had come true. The Dean, still caught in the moment, remarks that it was an honor, or rather a privilege, to witness the legendary immortal bloodline ascend. As far as he was concerned, he could die without regrets. But Lu Sheng didn't quite share the sentiment. If anything, he looked a little unimpressed. Instead, he casually pulled out his phone, because obviously, first things first, let him take a selfie. He angled the camera, made sure he captured the wheel as well, and after sending it, even asked Snowy if he looked good in the shot. Meanwhile, far across the universe in a desolate palace light years away, a figure slowly stirred. Seated on a throne, a young man wearing a crown opened his eyes. His eyes pierced through dimensions, then locked onto the golden light. He leaned forward, looking quite interested. He notes another bloodline beyond the immortal had emerged. A smile crept across his face and declared that the heavenly serpent star system was about to enter its greatest golden age yet. Stretching out a hand, then he hesitated. After a brief pause, he pulls back, deciding the timing wasn't right. He thinks our boy was still too weak, believing that arriving now might actually ruin him. He asserts that it was better to let him grow a while longer, and once the time was right, he'd summon him personally. With that, he closed his eyes again and returned to his slumber. Back at the testing site, everyone was finally snapping out of their stunned silence. Only then did they realize that they didn't even know our boy's name or his identity. But it was already too late because he was long gone. One noble gritted his teeth, visibly annoyed by the missed opportunity. But quickly, he hatches a plan. He was determined to track down Lu Sheng, and if he had to, he'd offer up his daughter just to get close. A sly grin creeps onto his face as he notes that even clinging to a single hair of his would be enough to bring glory to his entire family. Meanwhile, on the ship, Far sat upright, hands resting on his knees, fingers trembling ever so slightly. He tried his best to look calm, but inwardly, not so much. He knew Lu Sheng was talented, but he certainly wasn't expecting this. He admits to himself that he had clearly underestimated our boy. Not only did the entire star sector celebrate, but he also witnessed the prophecy firsthand. He now found himself wondering, could this kid be a descendant of a god? Lu Sheng, catching his expression and remarks, it was the wheel that reached its limit, but not his. Hearing this, the dude's jaw dropped yet again, all the while looking petrified. After some time, they finally arrived at the Yamu Federation's parliament. The grand doors opened and officials were already lined up waiting. The senator and the chief executive stood by each other, visibly excited. The senator rushed up first, shaking Lu Sheng's hand with both of his, and praised the young man, declaring that a true hero had indeed risen from the next generation. Far stood off to the side, quietly observing. Through the entire journey, the words immortal level kept echoing in his head. And the more he thought about it, the more he struggled to hide the smug look on his face. After all, this wasn't just any immortal level. Our boy was someone he took from White Mist himself. He remarks that every life gets one or two chances to be blessed by the goddess of luck, and this time, he didn't just grab her hand, he had fully embraced it. By this point, Far had no doubt that Lu Sheng was the greatest stroke of luck he'd ever drawn in this lifetime. No lottery ticket and not even a cosmic jackpot could compare. Meanwhile, the senator had been talking non-stop for nearly half an hour before realizing he'd forgotten something as basic as an introduction. With a sheepish chuckle, he finally announces himself as the head of the Yamu Federation's parliament. The woman beside him offered a subtle nod. Introduces herself as the chief executor, Ecclesia. Despite her strength and high status, she still shows Lu Sheng genuine respect, not out of formality, but recognition. The old man continues, confidently declaring that by the time this night is over, Lu Sheng's name will echo throughout the Yamu star sector, and eventually, he believes the entire universe would come to remember that name. Lu Sheng, ever humble, responds modestly, but Akeley quickly cuts in, offering context that changes everything. She explains that their Yamu sector sits at the center of 13 surrounding star sectors. Since the creation of the Federation, nearly 1 million years ago, across countless stars and unthinkable numbers of civilizations, not once had a single immortal-level extraordinary physique emerged. She emphasized that not one, not in trillions of life forms, not in entire civilizations, that is, until now. She asserts without exaggeration that Lu Sheng is the first of his kind in 1 million years, a talent unmatched in the star sector. Our boy was flattered by all these compliments, but at the same time genuinely surprised. But the surprise fades quickly. After all, he was certain to reach 15th level, maybe even 16th. Maybe only a handful of them appear across the entire star sector. So in a way, it made sense for them to react this way. The senator steps in again, elaborating further. He explains that normally, the moment an immortal level appears, the ruler of the heavenly serpent star system would send someone personally, likely to recruit him into their inner circle and pass down a true inheritance. But until that time came, he promised that Yamu would support him with everything they had. He asked if they really meant everything, and the senator confirms it, saying, of course, and his reasoning was that even if he was immortal level, but right now, he's still 9th level. So supporting one person with the full resources of an entire sector, that, he insists, is no issue. Our boy taps his chin, saying, if that's the case, then he could ask for anything. The senator flinches slightly, instinctively wanting to agree on the spot. Still, he steadies himself and awkwardly invites him to say what he wants, promising to do everything in his power. Perhaps already knew what the old man was afraid of, so he tells him not to be concerned and clarifies that he wasn't looking for resources. Instead, what he needed was a large enough life planet, one that could serve as a new home for the people of his home planet. The senator was shocked hearing this, exchanging glances with Akeley, who also seemed surprised. Far, meanwhile, hadn't expected Lu Sheng to still be thinking about that primitive planet of his. But maybe that was exactly the character that makes him special. As evening fell, we were told that in the vast universe, with people's lifespans much longer, there's not really a true concept of night or day anymore. Still, the human race, clinging to tradition forged over millions of years, continued to measure time in star dates, each day roughly equal to 3 days on Earth. And now, as one such date waned, preparations for an unprecedented evening banquet were reaching their peak. All eyes across the region had already turned to one place. Streams of aircraft soared across the skies, as everyone was desperate to catch a glimpse of the one who had created such a phenomenon. At the banquet hall, the Sith family had, of course, received their invitation. Milton and Vera arrived dressed to impress, though Vera looked a bit nervous, saying, "There are so many people here." The hall was already filling up, and Milton remarks that this was, after all, the Yamustar sector's first immortal-level talent in recorded history. The news hadn't even fully spread yet, and he believes that just a few more days, not even a planet would hold all those people. He glanced at Vera, then carefully chose his words. He instructs her that when man himself shows up, she must, at all costs, secure his friendship. Vera had already guessed this would be the family's plan. She looked overwhelmed, unsure of herself, doubting anyone of that level would even look her way. Suddenly, Milton grabbed her arm and yanked her toward him. Gone was the friendly older brother act. His gaze turned cold and declared that she must succeed. With her looks, the only way she'd fail was if that immortal-level prodigy simply didn't like women. Vera was shocked, seeing her brother like this, and could only nod in silence. Milton then squeezed his butt cheeks and muttered that even if the person didn't like women, well, maybe there were other ways. Geez, what the hell was this dude on about? Before the thought could settle, two figures strolled over with mocking grins. One of them calls out in a loud, mocking tone, calling Milton the famous pig rider Milton. He sneered, asking if Milton had gotten lucky with another Miss Piggy today. Milton's face turned red with rage, but the taunts continued. One of them even made a lewd gesture toward his groin, drawing a round of laughter from those nearby. Mortified, Milton decided to get out of there with Vera, only to turn and realize she was gone. His face twisted, saying even his own sister was starting to avoid him. He cursed viciously under his breath and vowed that one day he'd find that man and make him declare in front of the entire Yamu sector that he was not into pigs and definitely not some sick pig rider. The two who humiliated him were from a rival family. They knew full well Milton's reputation had already become a joke, which meant he was no longer a real threat. But Vera, meanwhile, might still be. One of them wondered if the rumor was even true. The other simply shrugged and remarked that truth didn't matter. If it was useful to them, then they will use it to their advantage. In another room, Milton stormed off in frustration, and suddenly spotted Lancer. His eyes lit up, figuring that even if he couldn't cozy up to the immortal-level prodigy, getting close to Lancer was still a good play. And right now, he believes it was his best shot, and began looking for Vera. But back inside the banquet, Vera had already found someone. She was smiling and seemed to be having a good time. Milton scanned the hall and found Vera talking to someone, but as Milton narrowed his eyes, something about the man beside her set off alarm bells, then murmurs to himself, wondering, wasn't he that low-born life form?